It's Halloween night in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Jack, a man in his late 30s, has just returned home after a long day at work. His house is the last one on a cul-de-sac, a little isolated from the rest. He's not really into Halloween but decided to leave a bowl of candy on his porch for the local trick-or-treaters. As the evening wears on, he relaxes in his living room watching a horror movie and occasionally hearing the doorbell ring as kids stop by. By 10 o'clock the trick-or-treaters have dwindled to nothing and the streets are eerily quiet. Jack assumes the night is over. Just as he's about to head to bed, there's a faint knock at the door, soft, almost hesitant. Jack glances at the clock. It's 11:15 p.m., too late for trick-or-treaters. Annoyed but curious, he opens the door. Standing on the porch is a lone figure, a young boy, maybe 10 or 11 years old, wearing a tattered, old-fashioned costume. His face is hidden behind a cracked porcelain mask painted to resemble a smiling jester. The boy stands there, holding an empty pillowcase, staring silently at Jack. Jack sighs. "You're a bit late, kid. I'm out of candy." But the boy doesn't move or speak, he just stares. Feeling uncomfortable, Jack steps back and begins to close the door. Just before it shuts, the boy whispers in a raspy voice, "Trick or treat." Chilled by the odd encounter, Jack hurries back inside, locking the door behind him. As he settles back on the couch, he suddenly hears a thud. It came from the hallway, right by the front door. He cautiously walks over and sees something strange. A single piece of candy, a vintage-looking caramel wrapped in faded paper, lies on the floor just inside his door. He didn't drop it, and he's certain the candy bowl was empty earlier. Jack picks it up, examining it closely. The wrapper feels old, brittle. The thought of eating it turns his stomach, so he tosses it into the trash. A sense of unease creeps over him. He double-checks the locks and windows. Outside, the street is empty, but he can't shake the feeling of being watched. He returns to the living room, but before he can sit down, there's another knock at the door. This one is louder, more insistent. Jack hesitates, dread pooling in his chest. Reluctantly, he opens the door. The boy is back, standing in exactly the same spot, his pillowcase still empty, his porcelain mask grinning up at Jack. The boy speaks again, in the same hoarse whisper, "Trick or treat." Anger flashes through Jack. "Kid, I told you no more candy, it's late, go home." The boy doesn't respond. Jack slams the door shut and leans against it, heart racing. Suddenly the lights flicker and then go out, plunging the house into darkness. Jack's heart pounds. He stumbles to find his phone, turning on the flashlight. As the beam of light cuts through the darkness, he hears a soft, rhythmic tapping, like someone's fingernails drumming against glass. The sound is coming from the window in the living room. Jack turns slowly, raising the light toward the window. The boy's face, still hidden behind the cracked mask, is pressed against the glass, his hand tapping softly, insistently. Fear floods Jack's body. He races to the front door, planning to bolt out, but when he opens it, the boy is no longer outside. The porch is empty. Just as Jack thinks he's free to escape, he hears a whisper directly behind him, "Trick or treat." Jack whips around, but no one is there. His breath comes in short gasps. He fumbles with his phone, trying to call someone, anyone, but the line is dead. As he turns toward the hallway, he catches a glimpse of movement out of the corner of his eye. The boy, or something wearing the boy's mask, is standing at the far end of the hallway, staring at him. This time its body looks wrong, twisted, too tall, its limbs unnaturally long. Jack sprints toward the back door, his heart pounding in his ears. As he reaches for the handle, he feels cold, bony fingers wrap around his wrist. He screams and pulls away, crashing through the door and stumbling into his backyard. He looks back, but the figure doesn't follow him outside. It just stands in the doorway, watching with those empty black eyes beneath the mask. Jack runs down the street, not stopping until he reaches his neighbor's house. Frantically, he bangs on the door. After a tense moment, his neighbor, an elderly woman named Mrs. Hatcher, opens the door. "Please help me!" Jack gasps. "There's someone in my house!" Mrs. Hatcher gives him a concerned look. "Calm down, dear," she says softly. "Come inside, we'll call the police." As Jack steps into her house, he notices something unsettling. On her mantel, there's a framed photo of a little boy, wearing the same tattered costume and cracked porcelain mask. Jack stares in horror. Who is that?" Mrs. Hatcher's face darkens. "That's my son. He died Halloween night, 30 years ago." Just then, Jack hears it again. A faint whisper from the hallway behind him. Trick or treat.